title is Transforming Education for Sustainability in Teacher Education. Dr. Chit Kong Ching is teaching at Institute of Teacher Education, Malaysia. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in Education in 2002, Master of Science in 2011, and PhD in 2018. And Ravi Bola, we know much about him by now. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Allow me to share screen.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay, good day everyone. It gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity to work with Professor Ravi on this presentation, Transforming Education for Sustainability in Teacher Education. I'm very much interested, and in fact I'm very impressed with the presentation by Professor Hila earlier when she talked about transformative learning. And earlier during the roundtable, she also talked about sustainability starts with teachers. So as teacher educators or in Teacher Education Institute, our main concern is how to raise teachers that are competent, all right, to deliver ESD effectively in school when they are posted, when they are when they actually start their teaching career. So the outline of my presentation will be this. We are going to look at the curriculum comparison between Malaysia and Mauritius based on the curriculum document provided or discussed rather with Dr. Ravi. And we're going to look at some of the project-based learning that we have done. And finally, I'm going to pose some points to ponder for all of us to think about how we can strengthen the role of teacher education in ESD. Okay, for curriculum comparison, all right, this is a very preliminary comparison. In both in Malaysia and Mauritius teacher education, we have this paper called Education for Sustainable Development. And both papers, papers in both countries are offered on a 3 credit hour basis, meaning that the allocation of teaching hour is pretty much similar. The learning outcome, as you can see, is also quite similar. I believe when we do in-depth analysis, we have much to learn from each other. For example, in the Malaysia context, we have number 3. Our training teachers are expected to be able to take action to solve environmental issue, to summarize best sustainable way of living and all that. Whereas in Mauritius curriculum, all right, there is this part which I find very interesting, developing learning activities, all right, to mainstream ESD through the whole school approach. I think this is very important, and Malaysia can learn much from this. And also the last one, to assess the critical role of school and teachers. So this is also aligned with the whole school approach, what was presented by Professor Hila earlier about institutionalizing ESD in school. So this is something that we can learn from the Mauritian experience. Furthermore, when we look at the content, it is also very similar in nature. In the third point of the Malaysian curriculum, we also look at the interaction between human nature and natural resources, because we believe that in order to train teachers who are able to appreciate the role of a human in managing the earth in a sustainable manner, we need to understand the interaction between human and its natural resources. And what I find interesting in the Mauritius curriculum is, again, the role of school and teachers in promoting ESD. So the emphasis on the role of teacher in ESD is very, very evident in the Mauritian curriculum. All right, and then in the delivery part, Malaysia mentioned we use lecture, tutorial, and presentation, whereas in Mauritius, I think Mauritian curriculum is very much more forward-looking in the sense that you have put the blended learning mode in place. Whereas in Malaysia, we did not do that in black and white, but we leave it open for individual campus or individual institution, all right, to do what is best. So in this sense, the blended learning mode is very forward-looking, all right, based on the Mauritian curriculum. And finally, for the assessment purpose, both countries also assess the learning outcome based on 100% coursework. So we are on the same page in the sense that we know that you cannot see how well somebody learned ESD based on a pen and paper kind of exam. All right, you need to have a project-based learning. There need to be seminar and case studies and field trips and that kind of things in order for our future teachers to really be able to gain knowledge and skill and the exposure, all right, when they go and teach in school later on. Now the second part is very quick sharing on some of the project-based learning that we have done both in Malaysia and also in Mauritius. All right, so I think as teacher educators or in Institute of Teacher Education, we are tasked with aligning. All right, we have the liberty of designing our coursework objectives and coursework tasks so that in ways that we think can best provide the experience for our future teachers, all right, to learn about ESD in general. So we have the free hand of doing this, and for that purpose, we have to be able to tweak, all right, all these coursework objectives and tasks, and even the rubric of assessment, so that it is able to capture the course learning outcomes. Okay, over here, one of the projects that we have done with our students is that we ask our students to do a kind of a social science research. All right, so what my students did was they interview their friends, fellow teachers in our campus cafeteria on how prevalent is the use of plastic wrappers that they use very frequently instead of using food container, you know, so that will be able to save a lot of plastic waste and all that. All right, so they did that. They did an interview, they compare and all that, and then they presented their finding on YouTube. And then another group of the students actually went a bit further. They went to the public, to the shopping mall, and then they interviewed people in the public and also business retailers about their opinion on the use of plastic straws, for example. And again, they posted this on YouTube so that we have a better audience and more people will be able to see what we found out. Okay, so what the students could achieve here is that they do digital presentation instead of a physical presentation in the classroom, that what we normally do, and they practice their social science research skill, and also they are able to relate to real world issues. That means they get to hear from the public, they get to hear from members of the public, and you know, about their perception and their attitude and behavior about the use of plastics. Okay, over here, this is another project, and we leave the students with their own creativity on what they want to do. And one of the group actually searched the internet and found out from Indonesia, all right, how somebody actually converted all these plastic bottles waste into furniture. All right, so when the students do this, they learn about life and career skills, they learn to take initiative, and they learn to be independent. And in a way, the cross-cultural learning actually happen here, because you learn from one another. Even though you don't meet one another in person, but the digital platform is very, very useful now. You get to see what is happening at the other part of the world. All right, and again, they learn accountability and leadership because they do all this in a team. All right, so this is what my students did. They collected all these waste bottles from the hostel, from the canteen, and then they wrapped up. They package it nicely, and then at the end of it, they can come up with this final product. You can turn it into a very simple chair or a table or even shelf for them to keep their things in the hostel in their room. All right, and this is the Mauritian experience. All right, I'm sure the Mauritian students are very, very active in field trips as well. So in this instance, the students are investigating environmental issues and finding solutions in the real world context. All right, so in this case, it is on probably the coastal erosion that's happening on the beach. So we always want to give our future teachers first-hand experience of what is actually happening in the world so that they can relate better. Okay, in the Malaysian context, we are in the trend of following the 6C, the global competencies proposed by Michael Fullan. So the 6 Cs will be, as you can see here, creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, communication, citizenship, and all these 6 Cs. So on our part, what we are trying to do in Malaysia is that we try to align how ESD can be conducted in a teacher education program based on these 6 Cs. So we have to design very carefully how all these 6 Cs can be embedded in our ESD course. Some points to ponder for everybody.
2 minutes, please.
All right, sure. All right, so some points to ponder is these are the 4 points I like to throw out for discussion or for all of us to think about. The first thing is about the digital upskilling. Our first speaker talked about using digital means, all right, to align the ESD with the community and all that. So it is important that in teacher education, we need to upskill the digital literacy of our teachers so that they are able to optimize the use of all kind of digital tools and platforms. All right, we also have to look at the professional learning communities. The platforms such as this is a very good one where sharing and networking can happen. And in the Malaysian context, again, we try to look at how we can embed the 6C global competency into it. And finally, I like to propose that probably we can also talk about community-based assessment. Professor Hila just mentioned earlier about assessment has always been very rigid based on school curriculum. So maybe we can think of a more flexible way in which you can involve community in the assessment of our students' performance. All right, so that is my presentation. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.